death, taxes, and death in Emily Dickinson's poetry. Those are the three things that we can count on in life. Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Ford, and we are here for another poetry discussion, which will appear in three separate playlists here on the channel. Ironically, they will be the poetry discussion playlist, now approaching 600 poems strong, the Emily Dickinson playlist, a playlist of videos dedicated strictly to the greatest poet that ever did live, and third, the Reading in a Winter Wonderland playlist, many videos in the December month of 2024 celebrating the theme of winter, of death, of the cold, of ice, of snow, etc. The poem in question today is To Travelers Perishing in the Snow, and it reads as such. To travelers perishing in the snow, the forests as they froze together heard them strengthening each other with the words that heaven, if heaven, must contain, whether either left behind, and then the cheer too solemn grew for language, and the wind long steps across the features took that love had touched that morn with reverential hyacinth, and the tales. Let me start over. Two travelers perishing in snow, the forests as they froze together heard them strengthening each other with words that heaven, if heaven, must contain with either left behind, and then the cheer too solemn grew for language, and the wind long steps across the features took that love had touched the morn. With reverential hyacinth the tailless days went on, till mystery impatient grew, and those they left behind, led absent, were procured of heaven, as those first furnished said. Now, I'm going to highlight the part of this that I want to focus on, and then we're going to look at some other Emily Dickinson poetry because there is some interesting stuff going on. Two travelers perishing in snow, the forests as they froze together heard them strengthening each other with words. I'm going to highlight a couple different Emily Dickinson poems, and maybe this will be so obvious that it comes across before I even get into the talking about it portion, but this is something that we have seen a lot in Emily Dickinson, but it's sort of like moving the period in a sentence that sometimes two short sentences together, two short declarative sentences together will produce a different impact than one sentence that has 2 points in it. Emily Dickinson has moved the sentence moved the period in the poem that we're looking at today, which changes in my estimation the message being delivered. I heard a fly buzz when I died. The stillness in the room was like the stillness in the air between the heaves of storm. The eyes around had wrung them dry, and breaths were gathering firm for that last onset when the king be witnessed in the room. I willed my keepsakes, signed away what portion of me be assignable, and then it was there interposed a fly, with blue uncertain stumbling buzz between the light and me, and then the windows failed, and then I could not see. We have that same period here. Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. The carriage held but just ourselves and immortality. We slowly drove, he knew no haste, and I had put away my labor and my leisure too for his civility. We passed the school where children strove at recess in the ring. We passed the fields of gazing grain. We passed the setting sun, or rather, he passed us. The dews drew quivering and chill, for only gossamer my gown, my tippet, only tulle. We paused before a house that seemed a swelling of the ground. The roof was scarcely visible, the cornice in the ground. Since then to centuries, and yet feel shorter than the day, I first surmised the horses' heads were toward eternity. So if we had to place the period in this one, it would be right here. The period here, of course, being death itself. Now, there are 100 examples in Emily Dickinson of this, and the period coming before the poem is the one that is most, sort of, in my estimation, represented in Emily Dickinson, where someone is going about and does not know that they are dead. Here, because I could not stop for death, we have a speaker that is already dead, we are left to assume, at the beginning of the poem. Here, this might be the period. This might be where we are shown the death of the speaker, but we have here, I willed away my keepsakes, all of these things, and if the poem ends with the speaker's death, we are being told about that death after our speaker has died. This is in past tense. I heard a fly buzz when I died. We are already after the death here. In this poem, there is still that sort of classic Emily Dickinson cluelessness about death. I don't mean Emily Dickinson herself was clueless. I mean the speaker in the poem, the character in the poem, is clueless of that death, clueless to that period. In this poem, two travelers perishing in the snow, the forests as they froze together heard them strengthening each other with words. These speakers are trying to cheer each other up. Look, we can do this. We've got this. I think we're heading the right direction. Here's a path. We know this path. We were here when we were younger. All of these things. That heaven, if heaven, must contain what either left behind, and then the cheer too solemn grew for language in the wind. These people are doomed. Whoever these two travelers perishing in the snow are, they are being listened to by the forest itself. They are done. They will die in the forest. We have here two people being clueless of their imminent death before that death happens, as opposed to often in Emily Dickinson, when the speaker has already passed. Interestingly, in this poem, we do not have the first-hand account. We do not have the first-hand account of the doomed. We only get first-hand accounts from the deceased. After death, we are granted our own language, our own words. We are taken by the poetry in order to give our own recount. In this poem, those speakers, the travelers perishing in the snow, are observed from a distance. They do not have their own voice in the poem. This is interesting to me because it seems that in Emily Dickinson there is... Now, I mentioned the phrase cluelessness to death, but really, if death is not that thing to be noticed, then it's just transience. It's not being clueless in death. It's the fact that death was not that great a journey. It's that death happens to us and then we go on. We are transient from life into the afterlife. That is a stark and, I have to imagine, terrifying ordeal. To wake up and realize you're dead. Right? I can't think of a more complete horror than that. And it's interesting to me in this poem that the reverential hyacinth, the love that touched the morn. These are all ideas of life, and they all come after the sense of inevitability in death. That's all I have for this poetry discussion. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, there is poetry on the channel every Monday, and I hope to have you back for the next one.